Hello, ladies. I'm so excited. We're already back for our 4th episode.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. Are you so excited? I haven't seen you guys in a few weeks, actually.
It feels like forever. I miss you guys so much.
Where have you been all my life, Maria?
I heart
Megan?
you. I heart you. I miss you.
Actually, I saw Megan last week.
You sure
You
did.
guys see each other more than me. I feel like
We really don't. We don't see each other much.
We don't.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
But I did call her like last minute and
I
said,
just
do you
feel
want
like
hibachi? Because she's having a rough one.
I mean, I just feel like I'm on the other side of the world.
You're
know?
like half a mile down from me.
I know, but you guys be doing all these little things. I'm like, oh,
You go out of town all the time.
You're
You go
gone
out of
a
town.
lot, and you're a planner.
Yeah.
I am.
We can't
I have
call you
to
last minute.
We
You're
can't
like,
call you and say,
no.
hey, girl, let's go hit hibachi
Yeah.
because you're doing like practices.
I have
not
to
on
look
my
at my calendar and
schedule.
says, sorry, guys.
It's not penciled
gonna fit.
Yeah, it's not on my Excel spreadsheet today.
Can you stop messing with my Excel spreadsheet?
Well,
I
I'm just
love
saying.
it.
Girl.
That's like actually one of my goals this year. Like
I got
that
you. I
I
got
really
you.
need to be like more organized. I'm like flat.
I'm just going to be
And then
honest.
one of
I'm
mine
gonna be
is,
honest.
like,
It's
just
never going to be my goal to have an Excel spreadsheet about my schedule.
because you
I'm gonna
don't
let
need
Maria
an
do it for
Excel
me.
spreadsheet
You need
because
it.
your
You have
head is.
assistants.
Girl, I have Excel spreadsheets for bills, but I ain't having an Excel spreadsheet for.
Life.
Yeah, no, not happening.
Sorry, that's how I roll.
What's been going on with you guys? Like, what's new? Like, Maria, what's new?
just
Honey bunny?
everything?
Everything.
House, life, football. I just feel like this is like crunch time for us since Tristan is getting into, going into high school. Just so much going on with sports and just making sure that everything all lines up with the house. And it's just
Building a new house.
it's stressful.
And it's flying by.
It is.
is.
It's going by so fast.
Is it making you nervous?
It is.
Mhm.
It
Is
is.
the timeline ahead or something?
Well, it just happens. Like you turn around and you come back and it's something else new.
I feel like I'm
know?
gonna have to meet you at the design center because I feel like since you're
Yeah.
so visual, you're like, and I'm not. Like I can just like throw it together and then I'll just be like placing stuff and be like, hey Maria, do you like this? Do you like this? I mean, that's what I did for the
Maria's
cabins.
never gonna
My
go for that.
anxiety is
No,
like
boo, I
to-
got you. I got you. We'll go to the design center. Just let me pencil that in my calendar and I'll help you.
It's just this whole house process is just like it's like having a baby dang near.
Of
Yeah,
having a
of
baby.
course.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, we all have babies. Whoop.
Oh, I mean, I still think of mine as babies, but they're not. Yours
Aw.
is.
Yeah, I have a
Yours is.
3-year-old.
Y'all's are.
Yeah.
Mine's.
I know.
She double digits now.
Maria, remember when we met?
I was pregnant with my youngest.
You were.
I was.
That's when y'all met when you were pregnant with Marley.
Yes. You
Yeah.
don't remember? It was your ex-husband's birthday, and I was sitting across from them. I had no idea who I was sitting across from. And I was on IVF drugs, and I was freaking out because they
You
put me
left
on
early.
they had put me on a new IVF drug, and I literally was like, felt like I was crawling out of my skin. Like I
I'm
didn't
so
think I was
sorry
going to make it.
I didn't want to do that to you.
That's all right. You're fine. You're fine. Was that what we're talking about? It's fertility today?
Yeah.
Oh my
let's do
gosh.
it.
So I didn't even think about the two together though. I mean, I didn't think about
I think when was it?
You-
I was about 4 months pregnant, so I was.
you were
pretty
showing. You were
yeah.
showing because I remember we went through axes afterwards and you
Yeah.
kicked everybody's ass.
At that point, I was
Literally.
on my goodness to get Spencer. So my 3-year-old, it took 3 miscarriages, 2 failed rounds of IVF, and I lost a son. I had lost a son before that, actually named Tristan. So I always felt like a connection with you because our sons' names are the same. I lost Tristan 9 days before delivery. And that's when Carrie and I mean, we were friends before, but Carrie and I were actually supposed to go on.
We were
get
having a day date that day.
No, we were going to get a massage.
Oh my gosh. Have we ever told you the story?
No, you
So-
could tell me in the audience.
Okay.
I'm like, let me think. So I was talking to her on the phone one night and she was like, I really want some queso. She always like had these cravings at that point for queso, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Queso and a foot rub. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm off work tomorrow. Like, let's go. I'll totally be down with that. And I had like one meeting that day and I wore slides because I was ready for that foot massage. And I was going into this like quick like hour meeting. I talked to her. She was on her way into a one of her last checkups. We had already had her baby shower. Like it was like the last. Like I figured that day they were telling her like you're
You're about to.
about to like have your baby. Like that's kind of what I was
Yeah.
thinking. I was hoping. And she said she was going into her appointment. I told her I was going into my meeting, and then we were gonna like check in afterwards and meet up. So literally like 15 minutes later, am I like supposed to tell it? Can I tell this
You
story?
can tell it,
Okay, I'm
please.
just rattling. But 15 minutes, it felt like no time later. I'm walking in. I was meeting an attorney for some new contracts and stuff, like business contracts for work. And we were meeting at a coffee shop, and I walked in, shook his hand, and she was calling me. And I was like, that's really weird. Like, I just talked to her. She was just like, let me just check really quick. And when I answered the phone, like, I thought she was laughing. Like, I thought I couldn't make out what she was saying. And I kept saying, like, what? And then I realized she was crying. But I still couldn't understand what she was saying. But I did make out a few words, and I was just like in total shock. Total shock. And like, talk about not knowing what to say. Like, I usually have something to say, but I had like just had nothing to say. I just kept saying no.
Yeah.
And she was telling me, I mean, you can go on because that's your side of the story, but
Yeah. So I went in that day, and I was already high risk because I was over 40, right? So I was like 40, 41-ish. And I had been to 2 appointments
And you were
every
already
week.
9 months pregnant, correct?
oh,
Correct.
she was
I'd already
full
lost.
term.
I'd
Oh,
already
full
lost
term.
my
Okay.
mucus plug.
Okay.
Like it was like
It
the
was
week
time to
before. It
have
was
it.
time, and so I went into the emergency room that week before, and my doctor sent me home, and he was fine then. I can remember it was Tuesday, probably one night. I didn't feel good. I'd made lasagna, of all things. I remember that, and I just didn't feel good. And I looked at my now soon-to-be ex-husband and said, "Do you think like I'm going into labor, or do you think I'm just tired?" And he looked at me and said, "I think you're just tired. Let's just go to bed." So we went to bed, and the next day I had a meeting. I'm an insurance agent, so the next day I was like, you had to dress up like in cowgirl boots and stuff. And I remember sitting in that meeting on Wednesday and not feeling the baby move. But, I just thought like, but I started voicing it. I started voicing it at about lunch. And I told one of my staff went with me to lunch, and I was like, hey, like, so I started Googling to see like, what do you do? Like nobody ever thinks like that's going to happen to you. Right. And
Yeah.
so, it said to lay on your side, drink some water. Well, when I would lay on my side and eat a piece of candy, I'd have stomach tightening. So I was mistaking that for movement. And so I went to a PTA meeting that night. One of my friends freaking asked me to be the president of the PTA at my son's middle school. So I walk in, I did all these things. And then Thursday, it was time to go in I would go every week to my gynecologist, and then I would go to have an ultrasound. Well, I had been to every appointment with my ex-husband, had always been with me every time, and he had to show a house that day. And so I said, hey, it's okay. I'll run over here. I'll go to the doctor. Carrie's meeting me afterwards. Friday, we'll go to get the sonogram. Go in there, she gets the Doppler out. And she was like, have you had any problems? And I'm like, well, I've just been kind of like thinking that I'm not feeling a lot of movement. And then I just remember, measuring my stomach and then doing the Doppler, and then her rushing out and going and getting like an ultrasound machine. And hers looked like it was like a dinosaur, like it looked, archaic. And so, and she just looked at me, and she was like, and I just started screaming. I was by myself with her. They took me across the hall to where it was a high risk where you would go to get your ultrasounds. And I'm like, at that point, you go into shock, right? Like you just go into shock. And I went into shock, and I was in a room by myself. They come in, and I'm screaming like, just tell me, like say something, And so, they were like, we're sorry, he's gone. They don't really tell you anything at that point. So I just started trying. My sister lived in Phoenix at the time. Carrie was, across town. Darian was across town. I called my mother-in-law. I just started going through my phone. And my best friend from high school, she lived over on that side of town. So I was able to get a hold of her, which was crazy because she does clinicals all day. So I think she was
Summer?
Yes. So Summer was the first to get to me.
Yeah.
Because I was off 75, But so I was there hysterical for at least 30 minutes by
I was like,
myself.
where am I going?
I have
on my way.
chills
Yeah.
just kind of.
It was the longest 30 minutes, of my life, and it was, the longest. I honestly, like, I go back and look, and in those months, even after, it's almost like it was a blur. I mean, I can remember going to work, get through all of that, bury him, like, because when you have a baby that
You have to
late,
deliver.
that's right. Well, and I, I struggled. I just kept saying, I want a C-section. So I'd had a friend from high school, and she had lost a daughter, and Summer said, let's call Ann. So we called her.
So I'll pause because when I walk in, she's saying that she wants a C-section. And we're thinking about like the scar, right? Like how is that going to affect you later? Because she's not thinking about that.
Because
Yeah.
as a reminder.
And so we're
And
like,
I'm literally
we're thinking about that.
like, yeah, and I'm thinking, I'm hysterical, saying, I can't, like, literally, I'm saying, I can't push a dead baby. I can't do it.
And they tried actually to send her home with sleeping medicine, and she like started screaming again. And so I was like, oh my gosh, they're really going to try to just send her home, literally, like just to wait. And she was like demanding that she's not going home. She can't go home like that, and they have to do something. And it was just wild. Like it was.
And to be honest, like, I don't even remember that part. Like, her telling me that, like, I don't.
Shock.
Yeah, like, you're just in shock.
You don't remember that part?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. They were originally trying to just give her basically like sleeping meds, go home, you'll be fine. You'll go into labor naturally, come back, and then you'll have the baby. And I'm thinking,
how do you do that though? Like, how do you
that's
go
their procedure
home and just
I think that's like typical, but
can you just induce me at that? But I mean,
well, they did.
Well, that's
they
what after she threw a fit,
demanded.
She demanded. They did
because
Pitocin.
mentally,
yeah,
that will throw you off.
Right.
You're already in a wreck,
right?
like mentally,
and then they're like, go
going
home
and wait until you have like.
There's so many layers to this story that really just are like seared into my brain, like that.
And because it touched my heart, she didn't tell me until a few years later. That I feel like that set the tone for our relationship. When you lose a baby or you lose a loved one, it doesn't matter if it's a baby, whatever. But I can tell you I've lost a lot in my life. But losing a baby or a child is by far the worst because it's a part of you,
It's
right?
like my nightmare.
Right. And so like Carrie was there and steadfast and never left my side and was there daily for me. And not that I didn't have other family and friends because I had plenty, around me, but that I feel like drew us so close together. And a few years later, she has a tattoo on her wrist, and I'll let you tell you. And I was like, "Hey, I really like. I have butterfly tattoos." we talked about that. Yeah, we did last time. So I was like, "I really like that." She goes, "Well, you realize that is."
So one thing that was crazy to me during the whole experience because she had a whole labor. So the odd thing in my mind was that they put her like all the labors on in like one row. So you're listening. So what I thought was crazy was I was listening to a family like have a baby in the room next door and like celebrate. And then you're listening to Megan have a baby and it's like somber. And like I would go out to just get air for like not out, but like out of her room for a minute. Just to like for a second. And I was standing there up against the wall and looking at her door, and they came and put this butterfly on her door. And I was like, that's kind of weird. But then later I finally asked, like, what is the butterfly? And they're like, well, this is just to symbolize to any of the nurses, any of the staff to be more like compassionate when they walk in and not say like, are you excited or blah, blah, blah. But some of them still, it was like they had disregard for it or didn't pay attention. Like they would come in and be like, so do you know where you're going to bury him? So do you know what you're going to bury him in? Like literally like while she's like in labor. And I was just like, finally I asked, because they just kept coming in and asking random questions. I'm like, can y'all just put all those, write them all down in a folder and we'll ask her at the appropriate time? Because that was
just a lot.
Because it would all like, it would flood back on her. Like she would get like,
you go from like stable to screaming and crying to like trying to like laugh through it to, I mean, the craziest, I was in there for hours, right? Because then they start inducing me.
We were there all day.
this is the craziest thing, but I'm going to bring it up and whatever. So,
Oh no.
I know. So during that pregnancy, my staff, because I had made the comment one day that I wasn't having sex during my pregnancy because it's high risk.
Oh no, you're gonna tell this story?
Yes. So I come in one day and
I'm nervous.
my staff had bought me a huge dildo and suction cupped it on my desk by my keyboard. And so you are like,
But did they know about?
And your sex drive, let's just be real.
this was before I lost Tristan.
Okay. Your
Right.
sex drive is on one when you're pregnant.
hormones.
Right?
Like, it's just
now
crazy,
I'm thinking,
right?
like, did
So-
they know about Tristan? Because they
No.
probably did.
This was during my pregnancy with Tristan.
Okay.
So like I hadn't lost him yet. It was during, and I was complaining that like, hey, like my husband won't have sex with me because he thinks it's weird, and I'm over here freaking out. Like my hormones are raging. So I come in one day, and they decided to buy me a huge dildo,
dying inside right now.
like huge, and it was suction cup to my thing. Well, y'all, the week before, I had used that thing. And so I'm thinking in my head, like, what happens when...
Did you use that thing?
I did, girl. I did. I did. I
she
used the
starts, like,
dildo.
So they give her anxiety meds in there, so she's loopy, right?
Yeah.
And she starts telling everybody about.
So I start
this.
asking the nurse, because what
Do you
happens in
think
your
it's
head...
because of the
Yes.
dildo?
starts asking
Well, I'm
everybody,
asking
and we're
everything. Like, what did I do? Like, because you blame yourself,
absolutely,
right?
yeah.
I missed the movement. It's me. Like, I said to Darian, like, please don't leave me. Like, it's all my fault. Like, everything is running through your head and you can't get it to stop, and you're in shock. And I was high as a kite.
Not the dildo.
So I asked the nurse, hey, do you think it's the dildo? Do you think it's the dildo I used last week? Did I do this? And she's like, no, I don't think it's that. Light of the situation, and looking back, it took me like months, probably a year to be able to laugh about that, because obviously it wasn't funny in the moment. But because in the moment, I'm jogging my memory, like, what is it? And when I look back, I think that Tuesday night when I felt sick, per se, is probably when I lost him.
Yeah.
That was probably it. He got in trouble. So he had the cord wrapped, is what they say. So, they never can tell you for sure. I didn't want him to do an autopsy. I'm like, it's not going to change anything. But it's the craziest experience, right? Like for those, it's, nobody wants to talk about a stillborn. And so, we talked about it before. Like I blog on my Facebook. I've always blogged on my Facebook, but that really helps me to heal, to go through the things that I've been through, and I've been through some tough things in my life, and writing seems to be an outlet for me. And I remember blogging, and I remember so many women flooding my inbox, literally getting cards in the mail from customers that were on my Facebook saying, I had stillborn 20 years ago. I don't know how you're talking about it on Facebook. It is taboo. Nobody talks about this, but it's real, right? Like women walk through that journey. I had seen every aspect. I'd had miscarriages. I had tried to do IVF. I got pregnant naturally with Tristan, so I felt like he was already a miracle. And then to lose him at the end, it was like,
and the whole
what?
bedroom being ready, and
yes, my
because
nursery
she didn't
was
want
ready.
to get the nursery ready. She wouldn't let anybody do it for a long time.
Yeah, it was crazy, and fast forward after I lost Tristan, you go through that, you bury them, you have to get your kids through it.
Sorry,
sure.
How did you get to that? Because it would be so hard for me to even try to have another baby, because I would be thinking about,
So I think,
how did you feel?
She had I might be not speaking out of turn, but she basically had a nursery full and had a room to come home, like to put a baby in, and never got to fill the void. And so the void was like magnified at that point, I think.
Yeah. And it was. And I think that, and you look and you do, and men tend to, they try to like make the woman okay first. So their grief is delayed. The best thing, and I will tell any woman, anybody that's suffering from any type of loss, whether it be a child or a loss, Google the stages of grief. I'm not a reader at all. And the hospital sent me home paperwork, and it had the stages of grief in it, and I read it. And so then it was like at the time when I was going through it, when I was angry or when I was blaming myself, I couldn't tell at the time, but later on I was able to look back and be like, okay, it's my grief talking, not my marriage. It's, it's my grief talking, not, I'm a loser, like it's just because you go through all the feels. And so I can just remember like getting through that. And the first wave, I had a staff and she, I was having a boy, but I had gotten kind of monochrome, like black and gray, everything.
Mhm.
And so the first wave of getting rid of Tristan's stuff was like the big stuff, like the crib and the car seat. And I had a staff that she really needed, those items. And I said, hey, if you don't mind, I would love to share them with you. And so I gave her all the big items, right? And then I tried IVF again and it failed miserably. 2 rounds, didn't get, that's when we met.
Mhm.
And they tried all these alternative drugs and they basically told me, like, you're older. Like,
And she was so stressed because it was basically like, these are your last of it. Like,
Yeah.
if this doesn't work,
Then
then you don't have a child. So it's like even more pressure, I feel like, than all the other ones before. Because I don't remember how many you did because they're blurring to me.
3 rounds of IVF. I did 1 before Tristan. I actually got pregnant with Tristan naturally.
Mhm.
So
So you did IVF before Tristan.
Right,
Yes.
and it
so when I
failed.
met her, I feel like
Yeah.
she was going into
Right.
IVF. So my whole relationship with her
Was IVF.
has been IVF. And so
Yeah.
I got a front row, like a truly front row.
Yeah.
But it's
So,
crazy
like,
just
all of
for
it, and it
those-
really made me.
Yeah, for the
It
women that are
humbled
out
me
there.
because I can sneeze and get pregnant,
Yeah.
and you take that for granted. And so now I really watch like what I say, and
Mhm.
things like that. Just
I do
from
want to make a
watching her story.
plug. After I lost Tristan, one of the best things I think my doctor did for me before I tried the second and third round of IVF is she said, we need to test you for genetic disorders. And so,
Mhm.
insurance doesn't cover for that.
Yeah.
And so it was $2,000. I happen to have the money for it. There's going to be, if I'm ever going to advocate for something, it will
Mhm.
probably be women struggling with fertility because I feel like insurance carriers should test every woman because
Yeah.
so it came back, they genetic tested me and I had MTHFR. And so what that is a genetic condition and you get either a heterozygote or a homogenezygote. So you either get it from one parent or 2 parents and I had it from one. So you see these women that die during childbirth and they bleed out or they die. And we had a friend that died and
Mhm.
the baby died during childbirth. They get it from 2 parents. And, I think that every woman should be tested because you would save lives.
Yeah, I don't understand that one.
Because the women that have it from 2 parents, they need shots. They can blood clot. They can, lose blood at childbirth. And then it's just too late. And then it's choosing mom, baby, or maybe neither.
Yeah.
Wasn't it something as simple as folic acid or something
Yes,
like
it was.
that?
I being from one parent, the things that it affected me was that I don't process folic acid, which you have to have to help the baby's brain. I don't process it properly. So you need folate instead of folic. And
That's
so
how little it is.
it's crazy. I can't tell you how many times over I lost Tristan in 2018.
Mhm.
April 2018. I can't tell you over the last 5 years, 6 years of my life, how many times God has led me to open up and be open with a woman. And she would say, well, I'm struggling, or I have MTHFR. Do you have that? The last time it happened to me, I was sitting across the table. It was year before last. And there was an agent's wife, and she just happened to say like, well, I've had several miscarriages. We're trying to have a baby. And I'm like, well, have you ever been tested for MTHFR?
Mhm.
And she's like, Megan, how did you know that? And I'm like, well, I struggle with fertility. And she said, well, I have, and I just got diagnosed with that. I said, go home and take a baby aspirin and ask for Foltex. So you take 2 Foltex pills, which is the folate. And so after even though we stopped trying and I said I was done after the last rounds of IVF, my insurance would only cover for 3 rounds. So I told myself like, you go down a rabbit hole, right? Like I went down a 5-6 year rabbit hole of trying to have a baby and you
Mhm.
just get sucked in and you're just trying anything and everything and you're desperate.
It's tunnel vision.
Yeah, it is. And you're it's desperation. I can't tell you on social media, like we live in the world today
Where
where
everyone shares.
yeah,
their-
it's
yeah.
gender reveals and a baby announcement on social
Yeah.
media. And it's like buying a car and you don't realize how many people have that car until you buy it. And then you see it everywhere, right? And then it's when
Mhm.
you can't have a baby. I can't tell you, I feel like in the year after I lost Tristan, I saw more baby announcements, especially around the holidays and more gender reveals. And they were probably always there, but I never noticed them.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was a nightmare. It's like living a living nightmare. It just was. But fast forward, I kept taking the full text and the baby aspirin because my doctor had always told me this is a natural way for fertility. But I stopped watching the apps. I stopped whatever. Went out of town to Nashville actually on a
Had a good night.
Yeah.
Got her cortisol level down.
and
No dildo.
And look what happened.
no dildo.
No, she had
yeah.
a real one.
Yeah, I had no idea and came home and my telltale sign that I was always pregnant is so if I brushed my teeth, I would
Oh,
always
yeah.
gag. And
Oh, me too.
I
She calls
gagged.
me. She goes, bitch. And I was like, what? And she was like, girl, I just gagged while I was brushing my teeth. I was like, And she was like, yes. She was like, I am on my way to work right now. I think I got coffee, but it doesn't taste good. And I'm going to take a test when I get there. I was like, I'm like on pins and needles. Like, no way. No way.
No, and do you know how many tests I'd taken over the last 6 years? 100, probably 100. So
Girl.
I had one test that I just had left over on my desk. I like dug it out. It was from the Dollar Tree, and I did it.
Not
and
the
it
Dollar
was,
Tree.
It was. I was only.
love the
I was
Dollar
only like 1 day late. So it was like 31
Yeah.
days. I literally took it, and I knew because I had been through the miscarriages where it's like a faint line, on the pregnancy test. I peed on it, and it literally was like Christmas lights. It was like, woo! 2 lines. Here we
She
go.
called- I'm like in
screaming,
shock.
crying, again.
But then, because, we weren't that close back then,
no,
but we were always Facebook friends. What pops up on my feed? Megan has a baby. I'm like, I didn't even know she was pregnant.
Oh my gosh, I forgot you didn't tell anybody.
Nobody.
No.
I was
She,
like, I
like,
had no idea she was pregnant.
no.
She became very
mean,
superstitious and was like,
I
I'm
would
not
get that.
announcing it. I'm not telling anybody. Y'all don't buy me one thing. Like, we
I
wanted
can
to
get
buy
that.
things. Like, we wanted to know.
No, not a thing.
Like, we wanted to
You were
give her a
afraid.
shower.
Yes.
We wanted to buy her things, and she wouldn't allow anything. Like, and so we all agreed, like, okay,
Let's just wait.
we won't do
Yeah.
it.
I think like I had some blessings along the way, right? So
PTSD.
well, I did have PTSD for sure. I did have to go back, but it was the craziest thing. I was going back to the same hospital, but my gynecologist and she had moved practices from her own practice from the 3rd floor down to the 1st floor. So I didn't have to keep going back and reliving that,
Mhm.
doctor's office. Same thing for the high risk doctor. I was now going, instead of 2 times a week, they were making me go on 3 times a week. So I would go basically Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week, my entire pregnancy. And he moved from a different floor. They expanded. So it was not the same doctor's offices, but it had all the same fills, right? So the PTSD was like real, right? So, you just go through all of that. And then, there was bumps along the way. Like it was not an easy pregnancy. Like I'd never bled before on a pregnancy. And for some reason, I just kept like having a condition where I bled, which is actually kind of common for women. And of all times for it to happen that time, but.
and a pandemic.
Yeah. And then the
Oh,
pandemic. Yes.
yes.
I literally.
So she was born, like, I remember when I went in, like, it was super cool because they catered to her because of her experience. And her
Mhm.
doctor was, I thought, amazing to her and allowed us to, like, all, like
Like
quite
6
a few people.
Six.
They
I
usually
think I
don't
had
do that.
6.
But they allowed it. They were like, it's cool. And so I remember going in and things were kind of closing and then coming out.
Because
and
it was the beginning of March, wasn't
and
it?
coming out of
Or
the
mid-
hospital
March
and
11th.
everything was like
Shut down.
shut down. And her Escalade got stolen.
Yes.
Wait, what?
Yes. So he had, I think,
Oh my God. Here you
I
are.
think
You
they-
delivered a baby and then your car gets stolen.
With the car seat, everything.
With the car
the car seat was put in, everything was in, and then her ex goes out to like get it ready, like come
Oh,
around.
it's time to come home.
and it's gone. And he's like, I know I he's like,
My sister's
tripping.
like, Darian says that, like the car's not out there. She's like, I think he's just tired. And so I call him and I'm like on the cell phone, I'm like, did you lose the car? He's like, no, we've been coming here 3 times every week. Like, I didn't lose the car. I know where I parked the car. He's like, I have this, Barney Fife driving me around in the golf cart, and he goes, he asked me, did we pay our car payment? So they thought our car got repossessed.
They're like, be
No.
honest.
No, it was a professional job. I'm an insurance agent. We ended up finding it, stripped down, nothing. 3 weeks later in South Dallas with 2 other cars. And so it was a professional job. Do you know the craziest thing about that was I had to call the Dallas PD because we're in Dallas County. 2 cops come into they come to the maternity ward to make their police report.
So wait.
I'm in a nightgown.
Did you have to tell the nurses what was happening before that happened?
Yes.
Okay, because I
we had
bet
to
they're
go
like,
to Target and get another
okay,
car
your car got
seat.
repoed. Now your baby's about to get.
It's not repoed. It got stolen. Yeah, these 2 cops come and then they you should have seen them. They come around the door and one was like, whoa. And he backs and I was like, yeah, I'm in the maternity ward and my car got stolen.
Actually, back up. We left a huge part out of this, actually, if you can believe it. In the middle of her delivery, she's delivering. We're holding legs, counting, all the things, super, it's intense, right? Spence comes out and it's quiet, no cry, nothing.
And I didn't know what I was having. I had waited.
You waited
to see
and
boy or girl.
You see the doctor's face, panic. Did you not know this? And they rush her off, to
right there,
right
in a
there,
warmer.
not in the warmer and everything, but they're literally
I think they had a panic button, so they have a panic button on the wall.
so they don't have to say it.
6 people.
She was not breathing.
No,
Seriously,
she was
I
DOA,
swear.
so dead on arrival.
And we're all super excited, right?
Megan,
Did you not know this?
No.
And
Yes.
so the whole mood shifts, but they don't say anything, but you can tell, right?
And I'm drugged up.
And she's staring at me and she's like, what's going on? What is going on? And I'm like, nothing. They're just, she's okay. They're just having, I'm look, I'm just trying to calm her down. And I don't know how long it was.
It was 2 minutes.
It was a couple minutes that felt like 10 minutes.
Yeah, they check
and Megan's staring
guards.
at me and I hear a super faint cry. And I looked at Megan, I was like, I heard her. And she was like, don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. And started screaming at me. And I was like, Megan, I swear to you, I would never lie about that.
Because I'm by this time I'm begging my doctor. She can't leave me because she's my doctor. You have your gynecologist is your doctor. They take care of you.
I'm thinking, Lord,
I'm like, please, I can't lose another
this
baby.
cannot be.
I cannot. I'm begging. I'm like, please help me. And I will tell you, my sister is amazing.
She started praying the most
Prayed
beautiful
my baby.
prayer out loud.
She started chanting. She was like, Jesus, show yourself. Screaming, Jesus, show yourself. My sister's very, total opposite of me.
very quiet.
Very quiet, very introvert, but she's very passionate. And what she's passionate about is Jesus. And I'm telling you, it was, looking back, she saved my baby's life.
Yeah.
She
oh my gosh,
saved
Maria, I have
life.
the whole thing on a voice memo that we've never listened to.
Oh my gosh.
Because I turned it on because I wanted to record the first cry so that she could have it, right?
Yeah.
So I turned it on, put it in the seat behind us, and kind of left it because it was one more push or something. So the whole thing is
How
on
long is that
there.
memo?
Oh my gosh. It's 5 minutes long or something.
I had
5 or 6 minutes long. And I told
her,
her months later, hey, I have it. She was like, I can't. It's too soon.
I can't.
But I mean, it's been a while now, but I have that voice memo. But that's
another thing looking back that kind of is going back. Well, the car seat thing.
Is that not wild though that happened again?
It is crazy. And
I was like,
the
there's
cord
no
had got
way.
wrapped. So it happened again. As I was pushing out, the cord got wrapped and they said it was a stinger. So her APGARs, for those that don't know, because I didn't know, they check your baby's APGARs and it's their responses at 0 minutes at birth and then at 2 minutes. So the highest score you can get, I think, is an 8, I'm pretty sure. And so she was 0, so DOA. And then at 2 minutes, she bounced back and was a complete 8. So she she came a month early because they had, induced me. And she only did I call it a drive-by in the NICU. I had her around 12:30 in the afternoon. And then she was in my room by 4. And then we had the car stolen and that whole ordeal. But looking back and, the second wave of, I talked about giving the big stuff. And so I had another employee that her son got pregnant. And so it was all a boy. And I was like, Amber, like I have all these clothes. They're all brand new clothes. And I understand like maybe it might be a little weird. Like I'm just not sure, but I have all these blankets and I have all this stuff for a boy, like everything that, your son could need. She's like, we will take it. She was like, this wasn't planned, they don't have like, the money to pay for this stuff. This would be such a blessing. And so the first time my son, like I did it when he was home and he just bawled and cried and it just hurt my heart and I was crying. And it was the strangest thing, like I go in there and I pack up all the things and I made sure Taryn was at school and I'm like, hey, you can't come over and he needs to be at school. I'm not going to do this again. Taryn just had, did not do well last time. And so I'm emptying out my, what's left of my nursery and I pack all the things in her car and she goes to leave and I go in the house and I just kind of had a moment and I'm like, I'm not crying. Like, I'm okay. Like, everything's okay. And it was because, you guys, I was pregnant already with Spencer and didn't know. I was about 2 weeks along and I literally gave the stuff away. So it was like God protecting me and showing me like, it's okay to let, oh God. It was like God's way of like,
little God
like,
wink.
Yeah, it was total, so that was like, oh yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. I look back. Another thing that I did was like, during that time, that 30 days, I was building my office building and my sister is like, let's take a Bible and, let's bury it under the front door, like in the cement. And, when they lay the foundation and she helped me to, between her and my builder, they helped me to highlight and Carrie helped me to highlight, scriptures in the Bible. And I took the Bible and, they poured, and I didn't know it, but I was like a few days pregnant and didn't even know. So it was just like, I had those two things from God, just letting me know, like, even as tough as that pregnancy was, like, and everything that I'd been through up until that point, it's like Spencer was, that's right. And Spencer was way tougher because she was a miracle 2 times over, like it was a miracle to get her. I was almost 43 when I had her. So it was like, to go through, I'd waited, with Taryn, it was like I missed 1 birth control pill and got pregnant at 29 and then didn't start trying again because of career until 37. And then to go down a 6-year rabbit hole to get another baby. But goodness, what a blessing.
And is it just me or do you feel like there's so many people that more now that deal with fertility issues? Like it's more common or is it just more like spoken about?
I think it's probably half and half. I mean, I think that it's like, women, it's like nobody wants to be the woman that can't have the baby, right? And so nobody wants to talk about it.
We as women, we get so much pressure of, are you having a baby?
Yeah, when?
Yeah, when, oh, if you only have, are you going to have more? What if I don't want more? Or what if I don't want kids? So I feel like us women just have so much pressure when it comes to just being a mother. So
it's crazy too. I speak to clients all the time, like, and it's funny, like our urge to like ask when someone has a baby, like, are you gonna have another one? Like, why do we think that that's like the first question? And they say that everybody asks them that, like, well, when are you gonna have another one? It's like, can I enjoy this one, or what if I don't want one?
Yeah, for the longest. I mean, you've met my sister. She's having a baby.
Ooh, I know, I'm so excited.
Their first baby, but with her, she had so much pressure of, oh, so now you're married. When are you having a baby?
I talked to her about MTHFR. I did. And I'm like, go get checked.
Though. Like they enjoyed their marriage and travel.
But she was so afraid because I know she said when they first got married, she went to a fertility doctor and they said that her odds of having a baby would be, because her eggs count was really, really low. And so what they did was like, they didn't not try to get pregnant. But it's still in the back of her head, like, everyone keeps asking me, when are you going to have a baby? So now that just kind of reminded me. And she had to say something to me too, like, hey, can you just like stop?
Yeah.
Like,
because we don't even notice when we're doing it.
No, because I want a niece or nephew.
Do you know how many women I've walked up to?
Babies.
Yeah, we love babies.
I've walked up to women and been like, oh, when are you due? And they're like, I'm not pregnant. And I'm like, oh, stuck my foot in my damn mouth. Like, what in the world?
Girl, I'm not allowed to tattoo pregnant women. And sometimes when they walk in,
you're like,
I'm like, I can't ask this question.
Yeah,
Like, because
Like, it's
what
like, can you
if?
fill out the
No,
paperwork?
I always
Yeah.
just go to the page. Like, I would just hand them, I would just like slip it to them. Now I email it beforehand, but I'll like look at it, and double check it. And sometimes it says no, and you swear. You're like, well, I can only go off of what
Yeah.
they say,
Yeah.
right? But I'm not asking. No way.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
It's a tough world we live in. It's a
So-
lot of expectations on women. It's
With it being hard, like seeing on social media, like
Yes,
people's
it's so
pregnancies and things
visible.
like that, did you ever have to take like a hiatus from socials, or did you ever like consciously do that, or would you now looking back?
I think no, because social media, like as far as like
It's been your outlet.
It has. It's been a saving grace for me quite a few times, in my life. And that's just because I like to blog and write, right? And so and I can't tell you the amount of outpouring love and support that I got from women. And if one of my writings can reach one woman, it was totally worth it.
Yeah.
Got Her Back needs a blog, and
Yeah,
this girl's
I'm
gonna
telling
write it.
you,
Oh my God.
you
We're gonna
need a
put
blog.
her
You
writing
need-
it.
Yeah,
You
we
need
can
to start a blog.
I mean,
Mhm.
I think we can. I mean, I think over
Yeah.
time, I mean, the sky's the limit. Like, we don't need to just limit ourselves to a podcast. We can totally do a blog.
So why don't we wrap it up with this? Like, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of women, that's gone through what you're going through. Any word of advice or any
the hardest
look at the
lesson,
camera and say it?
the hardest lesson I had to learn is it's not in your time. It's in His time. It's in God's time. So, like, I just was like a doer and a pusher, and I just was fixated and thought like I could solve all problems, but you can't. It's not on your time. It's on
Mhm.
His time. And my time came right on time. So I would just say keep the faith. And the minute that I stopped trying is honestly when it happened.
Yeah. You hear that a lot
Mhm.
too. It's like whenever
And it happened not once, but twice. I'd
Yeah.
stopped trying with Tristan. And I said I was trying IVF one time, and that was it. And I did. It failed. And then I stopped trying and got pregnant with him. Ended up losing him. But, and so then that's when I went back and tried the IVF again.
But
2 more
that's what
times.
everything that speaks in the Bible about being still, that's exactly what it means.
Yeah.
But we just keep pushing. And we
Right.
can't do what he can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he can't do. You know what I mean?
I actually saw
And we
this.
really fight for it. And then it's like when you get tired, he waits on you to get tired enough to be like, okay, I'm going to like give it to you.
Right.
But sometimes we are like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
persistent.
Yeah.
It's because we kind of want to plan our own life. That's what it is.
Oh,
You?
And I
you wanna
actually,
plan?
yeah. So I saw this thing on Facebook, and maybe, we could wrap it up after this, but it really stuck with me. So the video was, there was 5 people that survived 9/11. We all know what happened on 9/11. Those 5 people, 1, their alarm clock didn't go off. 2, the other person got stuck in traffic. The other person wanted to stop by for you get where I'm
Right.
saying. So it's kind of like you're not really late. You're perfectly on time.
That's
Your
right.
God timing, but that don't mean be late because I don't like being late.
Right.
All right.
it's super true. That's a good one.
Don't be late. But
Maria,
yeah,
our socials. Got to tell
follow
everybody.
us on @GotHerBack podcast on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and everything else. Am I missing? Oh, TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Whoop,
Y'all, TikTok is hard for me. So
You got it.
We'll get it together.
All
That was
right.
fun. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Megan.
Of course.
You only cried once.
I
That was
know,
a
I did
tough
pretty
one.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you did awesome.
Maybe it
I
was
like
the
how it
truly.
flows.